Okay, let me tell you about the most ridiculous academic war in the history of higher education. This is the story of Professor Harold Whitmore, a 62-year-old economics professor with a PhD from Yale, 3 published books, and an absolutely unhinged hatred for one specific font: Comic Sans. You know the one. That goofy, childish, I made this PowerPoint in 5 minutes font that your aunt uses for birthday party invitations. The font that graphic designers have nightmares about. The font that screams, "I don't take anything seriously, including this document." Professor Whitmore didn't just dislike Comic Sans, he despised it with the burning passion of 1,000 suns. And in the fall of 2019, a freshman named Jake Morrison accidentally started a war that would consume an entire university for an entire semester. Buckle up, this one's wild. Let's set the scene. Whitmore State University, not a real Ivy League school, but it desperately wanted to be. The kind of place where professors wore tweed jackets unironically and students pretended to have read the assigned chapters. Professor Harold Whitmore was a legend. Not the good kind. He'd been teaching Economics 101 for 34 years. Same lecture notes, same monotone delivery, same 3 jokes he'd been recycling since the Reagan administration. But what made Whitmore truly infamous was his grading. Brutal, merciless. The kind of grading that made students question their life choices, their intelligence, and whether dropping out to become a professional surfer was really such a bad idea. His average class grade was a C-. Not because his students were stupid, because Whitmore believed suffering built character. He had rules, so many rules. Papers must be double-spaced, Times New Roman only, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, stapled in the upper left corner at a precise 45-degree angle. I'm not making that up. The angle thing was real. He had a protractor. But above all else, above every other rule in his 16-page syllabus, was rule number 7. Any assignment submitted in Comic Sans will receive an automatic 0. No exceptions, no appeals, no mercy. He'd actually written no mercy in the syllabus for a freshman economics class. This man needed a hobby. Enter Jake Morrison. 18 years old, business major. The kind of guy who peaked in high school and was slowly realizing that college didn't care about his varsity soccer career. Jake wasn't a bad kid. He was just profoundly lazy in that specific way only 18-year-old boys can be. The type who would spend 4 hours avoiding a task that would take 20 minutes to complete. He'd chosen Whitmore's class because it fit his schedule, not because he'd read any reviews. His roommate tried to warn him. Dude, that guy's insane. He failed someone for using the wrong shade of blue on a graph. The wrong shade of blue? Said it was cornflower when the assignment specified navy. Automatic 0. Jake laughed it off. How bad could one professor be? Famous last words. The first assignment was simple. A 2-page analysis of supply and demand using a real-world example. Jake, being Jake, waited until 11:45 p.m. the night before to start. The paper was due at midnight. Online submission. He banged out 500 words about why pizza prices went up during finals week. Solid C+ material, nothing special. Saved the document, converted to PDF, uploaded. Done. Except, at 11:58 p.m., Jake noticed something. His entire paper was in Comic Sans. His roommate had pranked him earlier that week by changing his default font settings. Jake had forgotten to change it back. And now, with 2 minutes until deadline, he had a choice. Fix it and risk being late. Whitmore docked a full letter grade for every minute past midnight. Or submit and hope the old man wouldn't notice. Jake submitted. He figured maybe Whitmore wouldn't even read the whole thing. Maybe he'd skim it, give it a B-, move on. Professors were busy, right? They had lives, right? Harold Whitmore did not have a life. Harold Whitmore had grudges, rules, and a disturbing amount of free time. 3 days later, Jake got his grade. 0. Not a low score, not partial credit for effort. 0. With a comment that simply read, Rule number 7, see syllabus. See me during office hours if you wish to discuss your future in this program. Jake was annoyed. But honestly, he'd broken the rules. Fair enough. He'd take the L, do better next time, move on. But then he talked to his friend Marcus. Marcus was a computer science major, the kind of guy who thought in code and viewed every system as something to be hacked, exploited, or improved. Wait, Marcus said, grinning over his dining hall pasta. He automatically zeroes anything in Comic Sans, like, without reading it. Apparently. So, theoretically, if everyone submitted in Comic Sans, he'd have to zero the whole class. Jake felt something shift in his brain. A terrible, wonderful idea taking shape. That would be insane. That would be hilarious. He'd literally fail everyone. Marcus shrugged. Would he, though? What happens when a professor fails an entire class? Admin gets involved. Questions get asked. Suddenly, his little font vendetta becomes a university problem. Jake stared at his friend. You're suggesting we weaponize Comic Sans? I'm suggesting Comic Sans has been waiting its whole life for this moment. The plan spread like wildfire. Jake started small, told a few friends in the class. They told their friends. Someone made a group chat, then a Discord server, then an anonymous Instagram account called @ComicSansResistance. Within 2 weeks, 147 of the 162 students in Whitmore's Economics 101 were in on it. The assignment was the midterm paper, worth 30% of the final grade, 8 pages minimum on market equilibrium theory. Everyone, every single person in on the plan would submit in Comic Sans. But they didn't stop there. That would be too simple. They coordinated everything. Same ridiculous formatting, bright purple text on yellow background, random clip art scattered throughout, page numbers in wingdings, headers in papyrus, the only font more offensive than Comic Sans. It was beautiful. It was stupid. It was the greatest act of coordinated academic chaos the university had ever seen. One student, a graphic design minor named Priya, created a cover page template. It featured a watercolour rainbow, dancing cartoon calculators, and the words, "Economics is fun," in sparkly word art. 147 students used that exact template. Submission day arrived. The deadline was Friday at 5 p.m. By 5:01, Whitmore's inbox contained 147 nearly identical submissions, all looking like they'd been designed by a sugar-high 7-year-old, and 15 normal submissions from students who either hadn't heard about the plan or were too scared to participate. The weekend passed in nervous silence. Jake checked his email every hour. Nothing. Monday morning. Nothing. Monday afternoon, 2:17 p.m. An email from Professor Whitmore to the entire class. I have received your midterm submissions. I will be addressing the situation in Wednesday's lecture. Attendance is mandatory. Your academic futures may depend on it. Your academic futures may depend on it. Jake read that line 17 times. His stomach felt like it was trying to digest itself. We're so dead, he texted Marcus. We're so legendary, Marcus replied. Either way, we're making history. Wednesday's lecture hall was packed. Not just with Whitmore's students. Word had spread. People from other classes, other departments had snuck in to witness whatever was about to happen. The room held 200. There were at least 300 people crammed inside, standing along the walls, sitting in the aisles. Professor Whitmore walked in at exactly 2 p.m. He looked different. Not angry, exactly. His face had this strange calm, like a man who'd made peace with something terrible. He was carrying a thick stack of papers and a projector remote. He didn't say hello, didn't take attendance, just walked to the podium, connected his laptop, and pulled up the first slide. It was Jake's cover page, the rainbow, the dancing calculators. Economics is fun in word art. The room exploded. People were crying with laughter. Someone actually fell out of their chair. Whitmore waited, patiently, like a predator letting its prey tire itself out. When the laughter finally died down, he spoke. 147 submissions. His voice was ice. 147 students who apparently believe this is acceptable academic work. He clicked to the next slide. A pie chart showing normal submissions versus Comic Sans submissions. 91% of my class chose to violate rule number 7, deliberately, coordinated, with matching cover pages. Click. A screenshot of the @Comic-Sans-Resistance Instagram. Did you think I wouldn't find this? The room went dead silent. I've been teaching for 34 years. I have survived grade inflation. I have survived trigger warnings. I have survived students citing Wikipedia as a primary source. But this, he paused, looked directly at the crowd. This is the most disrespectful, juvenile, asinine stunt I have ever witnessed in my entire career. Jake wanted to melt into the floor, disappear, transfer to a university in Antarctica. And then Professor Whitmore smiled. Not a warm smile, not a forgiving smile. The smile of a man about to do something deeply unhinged. Which is why I've decided to embrace it. Wait, what? The confusion in that room was palpable. Students exchanged glances. Someone whispered, "Is this a trap?" Whitmore clicked to the next slide. It was his syllabus, but reformatted, in Comic Sans, with clip art and a rainbow border. For the remainder of this semester, he announced, all course materials will be presented in the style you have chosen. All lectures, all assignments, all exams. He clicked again. His lecture notes on price elasticity, serious graduate-level content, covered in cartoon money bags and smiley faces. You wanted Comic Sans? You'll drown in it. Another click. The final exam format. 20 essay questions. Each answer must be submitted in a different novelty font. I'll be grading based on creativity, economic accuracy, and aesthetic commitment to chaos. Someone in the back started slow clapping, then another person. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding. But Whitmore wasn't finished. The midterm papers? I'm not zeroing them. A collective exhale of relief. I'm returning them without grades. Pause. You'll resubmit them, same content, but you will present them to the class, out loud, all 8 pages, while displaying your original formatting on the projector. 147 oral presentations of deliberately terrible papers in front of everyone. Those who refuse will receive zeros. Those who participate will receive the grade they actually earned. He looked around the room, making eye contact with as many students as possible. You wanted to play games? Fine. Let's play. The presentations became legendary, not in a dignified way, in the way that viral disasters become legendary. Someone recorded Jake's presentation and posted it online. Him, standing at a podium, trying to maintain composure while reading, "The pizzanomics of supply and demand show that hungry people will pay, like, whatever for cheesy goodness," in front of a slide decorated with dancing pepperoni. It got 2 million views. Other presentations were worse. Better, depending on your definition. Priya, the graphic design minor who'd created the original template, went full method. She dressed in a rainbow outfit. She brought props, cartoon money bags, a foam calculator hat. When she finished her presentation on monetary policy, illustrated entirely with SpongeBob screenshots, the class gave her a standing ovation. Whitmore gave her an A-. "Solid economic analysis," he said, completely deadpan. "Poor font choices, but commitment to the bit was admirable." Marcus, who wasn't even in the class but had snuck in for multiple presentations, called it the greatest performance art piece of the 21st century. But here's where it gets really good. Word spread beyond campus. Local news picked up the story. "Professor goes viral after students stage Comic Sans rebellion," ran as a headline on 3 different outlets. Then national news. Then the internet did its thing. #Comic Sans Revolution started trending. People debated whether Whitmore was a villain or a hero. Font designers weighed in. The creator of Comic Sans himself, Vincent Conner, posted a video supporting the students. "Comic Sans was designed for children and casual communication," Conner said. "Using it for economics papers is objectively wrong, but also, this is hilarious and I love it." Whitmore became internet famous. Not the kind of famous he wanted. The kind where people make memes of your face next to quotes you never said. Someone photoshopped him as Thanos with the caption, "I am inevitable, but not in Comic Sans." Another meme showed him as a drill sergeant screaming, "Drop and give me 20 pages in Times New Roman." The university administration got involved. Of course they did. The Dean of Academic Affairs, a woman named Patricia Holbrook, who had actual problems to deal with, found herself moderating a meeting between Whitmore, student representatives, and the university PR team. "The situation has become complicated," she said diplomatically. "The situation is my classroom," Whitmore replied. "I handled it. By going viral. By teaching a lesson. They wanted to test boundaries. I showed them that boundaries can push back." Jake was in that meeting. As the informal leader of the rebellion, he'd been summoned to explain himself. "Professor Whitmore," Dean Holbrook asked, "do you feel the students were treated fairly?" "They received exactly what they earned. Consequences for actions, then an opportunity to demonstrate competence. That's more than fair. That's educational." She turned to Jake. "And you? Do you feel you were treated unfairly?" Jake thought about it. Really thought. "No," he admitted. "He could have just failed us all. Reported us for academic misconduct. Made our lives hell. Instead, Jake paused, trying to find the words. "He made it funny. He made us own it. And I learnt more about economics from preparing that stupid presentation than I did from any lecture." Whitmore almost smiled. Almost. "See," he said to the dean, "education achieved." The semester ended with the most bizarre final exam in university history. 20 essay questions. Each answer in a different font. Students showed up with font charts, guides, cheat sheets listing novelty fonts they'd never heard of. Question 1 had to be answered in Joker Man. Question 7 required Chiller. Question 12, the hardest economic theory question on the exam, had to be answered in Wingdings. Yes, actual Wingdings, those little symbols that mean nothing. Students had to write out their answers, translate them to wingdings, and include a translation key. It took 8 hours. Some students brought snacks. Someone brought a pillow. Marcus, still not enrolled in the class, showed up with pizza for moral support. When the last student finished at 1:30 a.m., Whitmore was still there, grading, by hand, with a purple pen. Final grades came out a week later. The class average? B+, highest in Whitmore's 34-year career. "I don't understand," Jake said when he saw his A-. "He's the hardest grader in the school. How did we all do so well?" His roommate shrugged. Maybe Comic Sans unlocked something in his brain. Or maybe, Marcus suggested, you all actually tried. Like, really tried. For the first time. Because it was funny. Because it mattered in a weird way. Jake thought about that. About how he'd spent more hours on his ridiculous presentation than he'd spent on any assignment in his life. About how he'd actually learned what price elasticity meant because he had to explain it while dressed in a pizza costume. Maybe that was the lesson. Maybe that was always the lesson. Professor Whitmore retired the following year. Not because of the incident. He'd already been planning it. 35 years was enough. But his final lecture? That became another legend. He walked in wearing a t-shirt that said, "I survived the Comic Sans rebellion of 2019. Someone had made it for him. He never revealed who. His PowerPoint was completely normal. Times New Roman, professional layouts, clean, boring, exactly like every lecture before the incident. Students booed. Whitmore paused, smiled, a real smile this time, and clicked to the final slide. It was a photo of the original at Comic Sans Resistance Instagram post, the one that started everything. Below it, in massive Comic Sans letters, "Thank you for the best semester of my career." And then, underneath, "Rule number 7 is hereby retired. Use whatever font you want. Just make sure you can defend your choices." The room erupted. Jake graduated 2 years later with a degree in business administration. He works in marketing now, graphic design specifically, creating content for brands. His email signature? Comic Sans. His LinkedIn headline? "Survivor of the Whitmore Wars. Will negotiate in any font." His first campaign for a major client, a regional pizza chain, went viral. The whole thing was designed to look like a terrible PowerPoint. Dancing food clip art, sparkly word art, random fonts everywhere. People loved it, said it felt authentic and refreshingly chaotic. Jake sent Whitmore a thank you card. Comic Sans, obviously. Purple text on yellow paper. He got a response 3 weeks later. A single line, typed in perfect Times New Roman. "I knew you'd amount to something, despite your font choices." It's framed on Jake's desk. There's one more thing. Every year on the anniversary of the Great Submission, something appears on the Whitmore State campus. Flyers, posted everywhere, on bulletin boards, lampposts, bathroom stalls, all of them identical. Comic Sans, clip art, dancing calculators, and one message: "Remember rule number 7, then break it anyway." No one knows who posts them. Could be Jake, could be Marcus, could be one of the other 147 soldiers of the Comic Sans resistance. Could be Whitmore himself, visiting campus once a year to tend the legend. Some say they've seen an old man in a tweed jacket walking away from a freshly posted flyer, smiling to himself. But no one can prove anything. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be.